Recording
I'm
in
Jason,
progress.
I'm an event production manager. Here at the Portland 5 Centers for the Arts, safety is our #1 priority, not only for our guests, but for our staff members. I'm at the Portland 5 Centers for the Arts, and you're at the Metro Regional Center. The council chambers are located on the 3rd floor. In the event of a fire or fire alarm, please exit through the door in the northeast corner of the room. Go down the stairway to the 2nd floor, exit through the main entrance by the reception desk, and gather in the courtyard outside that entrance. In the event of a medical or fire emergency, please call 911 and notify the security agent at the reception desk. The nearest defibrillator is mounted on the steps leading from the reception desk down to Grand Avenue. Thank you, and come visit us at Portland 5.
Oh, don't touch the button.
Yeah, it should be
different. Good morning, everyone. I will officially call to order the annual Metro budget hearing. My name is Harmony Quiros. I am the chair of the Tax Supervising and Conservation Commission. I welcome everyone to this hearing. As a reminder, the TSCC is a community oversight commission established by the Oregon legislature more than 100 years ago. The TSCC, I got it. We've had a lot this week, so you'll have to bear with me. The commission oversees the budgets of all TSCC member taxing districts and annually conducts a thorough budget review and certification process. Additionally, the TSCC holds public budget hearings like this one to engage with district leadership and provide additional opportunity for public comment before budget adoption. I will now ask my fellow commissioners to introduce themselves and state if they have any business relationships that could be perceived as a conflict of interest. And we can start with Dr. Wobold.
Good morning. My name is Mark Wobold. This is my 8th and final year with the TSCC, and so my last meeting with Metro. During my working years, I retired 2 years ago. I was a senior policy analyst in the President's Office at Portland State, and I have no business conflict with Metro.
Hi, good morning. My name is Allison Lugo-Knapp. This is my first year with the TSCC, my second meeting with Metro. I'm happy to be back. And by day, I'm an organizational development consultant working with philanthropy, community-based organizations, and the public sector. I have no business conflicts with Metro.
Good morning, my name is Todd Burton. This is also my first year as a commissioner on TSCC, and I'm glad to be back for my second meeting with Metro. Congratulations on the passages of zoo bond. My background is also in finance and mostly for local governments and utilities. I'm usually sitting with the staff. That was my my previous experience, so I'm glad to be part of this process. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Matt Donahue, third year on the TSCC. My day job is as an advisor or investment banker for state and local governments. I live in District 6, and I don't have any conflicts with the Metro.
Neither do I.
I'm Allegra Wilhite. I'm executive director with TSCC.
And I'm Tuni Betchart, staff with TSCC.
Hi, I'm Caitlin, and I'm the intern with TSCC.
Her first live hearing.
Yes. Welcome.
I know. Right? Again, I'm Harmony Quiros. This is my 6th year with TSCC. My 3rd year as chair. In my day job, I work in K-12 curriculum and assessment. I am a zoo member and a regular visitor of the visitor venues, but other than that, I have no business relationships with the district. Deputy, I'll get it. Deputy Council President Huang, would you introduce yourself and have your the district representatives please introduce themselves?
Absolutely. Yes, Duncan Huang, Metro Councilor for District 6.
Christine Lewis, Metro Council District 2.
Mary Nolan, Metro Council District 5, in which we are all sitting.
Great. Good morning. Juan Carlos Gonzalez, Metro Councilor, District 4.
Ashton Simpson, Metro Council, District 1.
We assume anybody else who joins us to speak can introduce themselves along the way. We'd like to start with acknowledging the district's receipt of the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for its fiscal year 23-24 adopted budget book. For our staff and for us, those great budget books make our job so much easier, and also for the public for transparency and clarity's sake. We'll start with any introductory remarks from the district, after which we'll provide an opportunity for public comment, and then we'll discuss the budget with you. So I'll turn it over to Councilor Huang.
Thank you. And thank you, Chair Corres and TSCC commissioners. Please let me begin by thanking you all on behalf of Metro Council and also our financial team, which includes Marisa Madrigal, Andrew Scott, Holly Calhoun, Val Galstead, all from the office of the COO. We have Brian Kennedy, Cinnamon Williams, Joshua Burns, and Robin Briggs from Finance, Steve Falstick from the visitor venues, and all the other staff around our agency that support this yearly undertaking. The fiscal year 24-25 budget was developed to support 3 key strategic targets adopted by the Metro Council with input from subject matter experts and community members. The budget prioritizes housing for all, a resilient economy for all, and meeting our climate and resilience goals. Metro's commitment to an investment in racial equity underpins each of these strategic targets. The adopted strategic targets have helped staff develop a budget that meets our vision for the future while supporting the critical services Metro provides to the greater Portland region. This council and the entire Metro staff are committed to delivering financial responsibility and transparency to the residents of our region, whether it is bringing people closer to nature, managing the garbage and recycling system, helping our region stay smart about urban growth, creating housing options for those facing homelessness, or providing venues for people to have celebrate culture, and importantly, to watch polar bears play. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss the budget with you today, and we look forward to your questions.
Great. I will now call on any members of the public who would like to speak. Each person is limited to 3 minutes of speaking time, and we'll let you know when you're nearing the end of your time. Allegra, did we have anybody sign up to speak today?
No, we have no public comment today.
We have lots of questions, so should anybody join us at some point, I'll try and provide time at the end of the meeting. So with that, we'll dive into our discussion. We're looking forward to it. It's always a robust conversation. Allison, you have the first question.
All right, thank you. So the first question is around housing, and so Metro is in the unique position of leading, coordinating, and aligning affordable housing development and homeless services for the region. We'd love if you could share what have been some of your biggest successes in this area so far with this work, and what are some of the largest challenges that you've encountered?
Great, I can kick us off. So for decades, our homeless services system and affordable housing development efforts have been bifurcated, but thanks to voters across the region, Metro and our jurisdictional partners are now in the unique position of ushering in a new and coordinated system that can serve people experiencing homelessness with permanent housing. One of our major successes is the integration of rental assistance and services funded by the 2020 Supportive Housing Services Fund within affordable housing developments funded by the 2018 Affordable Housing Bond. More than half of the 52 development projects funded by the bond include plans to integrate services funded by the supportive housing measure. This includes the Hattie Redmond project in North Portland, which provides 60 units of permanent supportive housing designed for individuals and couples with disabilities who are exiting homelessness and request culturally specific services within the Black and African American community. This project was co-developed by Home Forward and the Urban League of Portland with capital funding from the Affordable Housing Bond and long-term rental assistance and wraparound services from the supportive housing measure. The Hattie Redmond is one of several PSH initiatives that have braided together SHS and Affordable Housing Bond funding to deliver a holistic approach to advancing housing stability that integrates housing and services. One of our major challenges is that our affordable housing bond is nearly fully committed, and our pipeline of new affordable units will soon dry up. This puts the integrated system we're currently building at risk, and is why we're starting discussing expanding the uses of supportive housing funds to include affordable housing. And I think I'll wrap it up
Pause
there.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up, when you're thinking about some of the successes that you've shared, what have been some of the processes, approaches, or techniques that have been most effective in getting this work done?
Yeah, Metro's role in regional housing is relatively new. Our housing department was created in fall of 2022. So our approach is to support our partners' implementation and guide growth towards a truly regional program. Our department now consists of 46 FTE working on public-private partnership models, coordination and partnership between jurisdictions that work towards regional goals, but yet are responsive to local needs, oversight and monitoring of our partners' work in both affordable housing development as well as SHS implementation, developing our region's capacity to provide housing services through training, job fairs, conferences, and technical assistance, and supporting regional alignment in areas such as landlord recruitment, employee recruitment and retention, healthcare system alignment, all being directed by the Tri-County Planning Body. And finally, we have policies to support integration of the housing bond with SHS and with broader Metro programs and policies, such as the development of a regional housing strategy with planning, development, and research.
I have a follow-up. It's not on our script. So I think the last few years, I think coming out of the pandemic or in the midst of the pandemic, we've had this conversation with you many times. And I was looking over our past questions. We say, when is the public going to see a change? And it's a nice touch point for me every year to come back and have that conversation again. And we talked to the county yesterday, and we'll talk to the city in 2 weeks. That I think the public's starting to see that change, right? We're starting to see movement. And I'm curious what you think if that perception of moving the needle or making big strides to kind of tackling the broad issue and the broad experience of our houseless neighbors and moving people into housing, if that perception is true, how close we are, how far we are from kind of the end goal of housing folks. And I'll open it to any counselor who'd like to comment.
I think I'll start, and
Yeah.
I think we've been seeing a lot of great press articles in recent months with a lot of our jurisdictional partners taking the lead. I saw that in Clackamas County, houselessness was down 65% since 2020. And Washington County was able to eliminate all long-term encampments. So I think there's progress being made, and I think the data supports that. And I think we're really invested in continuing that momentum and progress, and making sure that we're addressing housing needs at all levels, and making sure people are supported as they move, transition away from homelessness into permanent housing.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mark. Take the next question.
Our next question has to do with a particular interest of ours, which as a community engaged volunteer commission, you would expect us to have. So you have an advisory group, it's called the Housing Funding Stakeholder Advisory Table, and it held its last meeting on May 10th. Can you share some of the recommendations that came from this process? And what are your next steps in working with this group?
Great. I'll take that one, and I'll say, commissioners, I love that the first two questions right out the gates are on housing, really reflecting the urgency of the crisis, and also the sentiment and the urgency with which we need to do this work. So just want to call out and acknowledge the effort and attention that you're putting there. The stakeholder advisory table is a group of leaders, of practitioners, as some of you might know, from across the spectrum and sectors, organized by our COO, Marisa Madrigal, and is actually one of many different kinds of advisory groups that have been informing Metro over the last 5-6 years plus around housing, and particularly with the stakeholder advisory table, we have been looking into this effort around continuous improvement and really wanting to do right by the investment made by the voters, continuing to do research into best practices and have deep conversations in the direction of how this system evolves to meet the needs. So I want to get straight into the question about the recommendations. As you can imagine, with a region as big as ours and 3 counties and all the providers that we have, there are areas of difference, but we do have some areas of alignment. And they include the following, and I have them written down here, so I want to make sure I read them. Ensuring any housing investments focus on those with the greatest need, specifically those experiencing chronic hopelessness or at the greatest risk of it. Extending long-term certainty for partners, providers, and community by expanding allowable uses for SHS dollars to include housing and either extending or eliminating the 2030 sunset. Exploring tax relief options to keep the measure focused on higher income households as incomes rise with inflation, and improving oversight structures to be more transparent, accountable, and able to correct when necessary. So over the next several weeks, the stakeholder advisory table did have its final meeting. Right now, we're having close discussion with our public partners about what a potential final recommendation, effective recommendation from Marisa to the council might be around something that could be either administrative changes, something that might go to the ballot, asking the voters for a reform package, including these items built on oversight and on continuing to drive the mission of the measure as it was intended.
So you'll bring this set of recommendations when they're finalized to the commission or to the council?
I think that question's for me. Marisa Madrigal, Chief Operating Officer for Metro. Yes, so as Councilor Gonzalez said, the stakeholder advisory table was one of many channels that we've been that we've opened to seek information. There's stakeholder advisory table. We've been doing community engagement. We're doing technical analysis on housing investments and financial forecasts. So all that stuff will come together in a recommendation that will answer the question, what is Metro's role in continuing to fund affordable housing? What is the best path forward to ensure that that continues to happen? It's critical, as our 2018 bond is fully committed, that we don't have an interruption in funding, because then the pipeline starts to fall apart. The infrastructure that we have built up to make sure that affordable housing projects, can be built, people go take other jobs. So the stakes are high, but I'm very encouraged by the alignment that we're seeing, not just from our stakeholders, but in public research, public opinion research that we've done. So I anticipate, a robust recommendation to council.
Terrific. As a follow-up, having this much information and analysis and research being done, you might have a good idea, or beginning to have a good idea, about how the need varies across the 3 counties. So what do you see, what trends do you see for each county going forward in this area?
In terms of?
In terms of homelessness, houselessness.
Well,
the need for affordable housing.
Well, I think that through the last few years in particular, we've really felt through the mechanisms, as Councilor Wong was saying, with the affordable housing bond and the supportive housing services measure, our region has experienced, this really special moment of abundance of resources to inject public dollars into subsidized affordable units, and now building this wraparound service and helping to support people exiting chronic homelessness. With the SHS Metro in particular that we've been working with and through the stakeholder advisory table, and the nuance that we really want to, respect as we ask these broader questions of oversight and the next steps is, each county experiences the homelessness crisis in a different way, and continuing to find ways to respect those differences while also building a strong regional system with regional priorities, regional data, regional programs, regional workforce investments, all of these things that have come up through our current oversight and planning committees. And as I'm sure you know as well, with local implementation plans that have been in place, those are things that we know we want to continue. The stakeholder advisory table is a broader conversation, not about disrupting and interrupting the good work that is happening. It's also about recognizing, as we're collecting more resources than we had anticipated, as we foresee the growth of the need for housing production and also the horizon for homeless services in the future, is there what area for programs and change do we have here? And that's the process that we've tried to engage in, trying to work on with each county partner on that. So
needs analysis is part of the process as you go forward. It's just kind of a rolling, moving effort.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I won't be here next year to ask follow-up questions for that, but I'm sure somebody will.
Yeah.
So,
anyway,
how's it going?
I just have one more follow-up. One of the big conversations too, we talked last year and yesterday with the county is the ability to spend the supportive housing dollars, right? Like the effectiveness and efficiency at getting the money out the door to partners and making that happen. We see amazing progress on the affordable housing side of things, right? Building more units than anticipated and things like that. But are we seeing the momentum that started last year and like getting the money out the door in an efficient way, not only just to like get the money out the door, but to meet specific needs? Are we doing it in a practical way, targeted to outcomes and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll call Marisa, but I'll say, I mean, we've built a huge program from the ground up, and the ramp-up period. I mean, a few of us were in DC a few weeks ago, talking with USDOT around bipartisan infrastructure law, and these investments take a long time to ramp up, to obligate and authorize these programs. And I think, generally we understand that things take time, but I think when those headlines come and already the sense of trust in local government, I think that is something that us as a council really continuing to wrestle with. We want to deliver those results and also communicate those stories in a way that is authentic to each county and to each of our districts. And that's the real challenge and the real area of the work that I personally feel. But I would love to call in Marisa to give you a probably deeper, more technical answer.
Thank you. So I think we do have evidence that county spending is accelerating. And so there is not, going to continue to be a large, amount of money left on the table. What is still being analyzed is the effectiveness of that spending. So, are we employing the right strategies for the right level of acuity? What is the, rate of success that we're having with the different programs that the counties have implemented? I think that is still a question, and one of the things that's come up at the stakeholder table and our other tables is that accountability and transparency piece. Right now, the system was built to get the funds out the door. It's an emergency, it's urgent, get it out the door. And so the analysis is all looking backwards. And I think what there's interest in is looking at the governance, being more clear about the plan and the outcomes and strategies that we're employing up front, so that we can all follow along with the process instead of having to backcast and say, okay, all this money was spent, what happened? So that's something that's going to be, regardless of what happened, whether there's a referral to the ballot or not, I think there has to be a conversation about that transparency and accountability with our counties.
And the pipeline across the whole system too. right?
That's right.
Okay. Matt.
All right. The bond guy here, so I get to ask the bond question. Congratulations on passing the zoo bond. Look forward to seeing all the cool new exhibits and improvements to the zoo. And part of that campaign was, that this is gonna fit into Metro's overall jail bond debt service and not raise the bond tax levy, which I think we all can understand the value of that, and that the public gets, nice buildings and essential capital projects without having to pay additional taxes. I think at some point it may appear to some that now we have a GO bond tax levy in perpetuity, and every time there's maybe a bond expiring, that Metro goes back out and layers in a new project with a new tax levy. So I guess the question is just how does Metro think and weigh the needs and the costs of capital projects for all its priorities against, the tax burden on the public? And if there are, probably there's not going to be any time period where you run out of things that you could build for public benefit, but can we introduce to the conversation of when it might be appropriate to see that rate go down?
Thanks for the question. And I appreciate the congratulations that several of you have given us. I want to make sure we're clear that Metro didn't pass the bond measure, the voters did. We gave them the opportunity to do that, but they passed it. And we're very grateful to them for that. Bonds and taxes. We start from a premise at Metro that we're committed to delivering services and facilities that are needed and desired by the region. And then we figure out how to pay for them. We don't say, oh, well, we've got this capacity out here, so how do we fill up that bucket? There will probably not in my lifetime, certainly not in my political lifetime, be a moment when we have checked every box as being done because public activities, public services are an ongoing requirement, and facilities wear out, become inadequate, become unsafe over 50 years. And given that you made a comment that we should be looking at maybe reducing or providing tax relief, and certainly we are very mindful of, as Marisa mentioned on the housing services measure, making sure we have adequate, measurable, objective targets, results that we share with our partners to deliver services. But tax relief in and of itself isn't the goal. Having a tax system, including levies, tax base, and bond measures that's adequate to the needs and desires of the region, progressive to the extent that we can make it so, and stable. Those are the things we're looking for. So to specifically look at your questions, we do prioritize predictability in assessing property taxes for debt service, but our strategy is best described as being responsive to the voters, making investments in public services and facilities, bonds only in facilities, that matter to them. Every decision that this council makes to refer something to the ballot results from a prioritization exercise that we conduct with our partners, the general public, community-led organizations, groups representing taxpayers, groups representing employers. We do public involvement really robustly here at Metro, and I think that's an important point to make on the record. You talked about, in the previous question about housing, the stakeholder advisory group. We know that we have a culture of engagement early on. As Marisa mentioned, we work really hard. We're really good at it, but not perfect, in asking in advance what's needed and how do we do it, how do we structure it, how do we sequence it, rather than at the end, especially with a bond measure that is time limited. Well, we spent the money, did we get what the voters wanted out of it? The current stakeholders roundtable on the housing, the combination of capital and services is a perfect example of that. And the zoo bond resulted from an intentional investment in parts of the zoo that were not covered by the updates funded by the 2008 zoo bond measure. The zoo, I'll remind us all, is the most popular ticketed venue in the state of Oregon. It is a pivotal point for our tourism economy. It is also an opportunity for us to lead in stewardship of our region and the climate, the animals we share this space with. We do research there that supports protecting endangered species, reviving species that are on the brink of extinction. A lot of what we are anticipating providing through this bond measure has to do with access to the zoo for people with a variety of abilities, disabilities, reaching out to the entire region, school groups, making sure that as we balance all of that, we welcome people of all income brackets to the zoo, all cultures, make sure that it's not just responsive to them, but something that resonates for them. I've gone on a little bit long, but I want to make sure you understand all the ways that we think about this in the context of everything else we do. Finally, I'll just close by saying, those of you who've been doing this for 8 years have watched Metro's bucket of responsibilities explode in those 8 years. And we are doing our best to balance all the interests because all those additional responsibilities the voters have asked us to undertake have not come with funding until the affordable housing bond measure was approved by voters. The supportive housing services wraparound was approved by voters. And we're delivering results. At the same time, we're figuring out how to balance the priorities among very disparate responsibilities.
I think we'll provide some additional context. This is not, when we talk about tax relief or thinking about it, part of this is because we see a trend among all of our districts, right? We see PPS, the school district, kind of rolling bonds, and we have the parks. And not that there isn't need, right? When we talk about the need with folks as well, I think we also hear from our neighbors and conversation, like, what's next, where's the end, what does it look like, and then you have a conversation statewide around tax relief or trying to make, thinking about the livable incomes in the district, in the state, and where taxes fall and all of that. So I think that's important context to provide. So I'm an avid zoo goer. I was one of your biggest advocates, not as a TSCC representative, but as a public person. So I think there is a recognition of the need. We just want to make sure that we're having the conversation around how those priorities are set and decisions are made in the greater context of the trends that we're seeing.
And also, it's in our name, Tax Supervising and Conservation Commission. So it's something we care deeply about.
Good.
Go to the next one.
All right, the next question. Switching gears a little bit, we're now 4 years since the start of the pandemic. Our region we've just talked about how much it's changed, how much Metro has changed in those years. Can we talk a little bit about the trends you've seen with Metro, parks, and nature area usage? How have community needs changed around those spaces? And how do you plan to change or continue to change and adjust services to serve those current community needs and evolving community needs?
Yeah, I'll have that question.
Sure.
Thank you so much. I love talking about our parks. Outside of our event venues, the zoo, it's one of our other great assets we have at Metro with over 18,000 acres being managed by our staff here. The pandemic brought into sharp focus many inequities being experienced in the region, as well as a deep desire to protect and connect with nature, parks, and green spaces. After the 2020-2021 initial dips in visitation based on car counts, we've seen a numbers return to pre-pandemic levels, as well as a steady visitation at our 2 new nature parks, which opened in 2022. As part of the outreach and engagement for our 2019 Parks and Nature Bond and 2022 Parks Operating Levy, we are aware of a growing request for access to nature in several different areas. That shows up as requests for access to decisions that shape new parks or natural spaces, access to programming that meets the culturally specific needs of communities, and access to the larger benefits that natural spaces provide. We have and will continue to incorporate feedback and ongoing listening to communities. This will help us ensure this process of responsive community engagement transitions towards full collaboration and co-creation of outcomes.
We know that during the past few years, there has been a significant work to engage underserved groups and connect underserved groups with park services. Are we seeing success? Has there been a shift in park visitor demographics over these past few years?
Yeah. Parks and Nature continues to make progress on several efforts to build community resilience and access to programming and natural spaces. The department facilitates several programs designed to empower community organizations and nonprofits through subsidized or special access for programs or space to maintain and build connection to the natural spaces we steward. While these efforts do not easily translate into card data, Parks and Nature is exploring ways that we can unobtrusively collect demographic data for park use and participation programs or community engagement efforts. And I'll just chime in and say, I was not on the council, and this is just an experience that I had with the Parks and Nature staff as a citizen. I was executive director at Oregon Walks, and we had just started a walking program geared to get Black folks active. And it was based on a number of reports. Walking While Black from the PED PDX report was one of them. And access to nature was a big component of that report that came out. And so we took that data and we said, hey, well, how do we give folks access to nature? And working with the staff here at Metro, they were able to not only give us access to nature, but they gave us access to safety equipment, PPE, to be along the river because they took us out to Oxbow Park. They gave us free parking passes. They had a park ranger on staff just in case anything happened or if we needed any assistance. And it was that level of care from the staff, from this agency, that showed me that we're moving in the right direction and trying to make sure everybody has access to those nature spaces. So I just wanted to plug that because personally, this agency has done right and continues to do right by communities of color, in my experience.
Appreciate the anecdote too, just to give context to
Yeah,
these bigger
course.
ideas. On a separate note, what progress has the district made on identifying sustainable funding for parks operations? Mentioned a few of the levies. Are there specific permanent funding sources you're pursuing?
You know, the script says we don't.
Yeah.
And I will say that, you know, every 7 years, we will be all continuing to go and talk to folks, and get a re-up on measures and levies. I will say this, though, staff is having conversations internally and externally of how we do this, and hopefully next year when you come and talk to us, we'll have a better answer.
I think it's the need is high across the board in lots of places.
Sure. Great.
Go ahead, Todd.
Thank you. So during our hearings that we've been holding, I'm sure this topic is more pronounced now than it has been in the past, and we certainly have been talking about security with TriMet, with this, we will be talking about that with the City of Portland, with Multnomah County, the libraries, and Metro, of course, too, has a big security component in the services it provides. And your budget describes challenges faced by the visitor venues that you manage, and note that staff are working with partners to improve the perceptions of safety at your facilities, which will hopefully bring more tourism and visitations to the city of Portland, and your service area. What will that entail, and how will you promote Portland and other places that you serve as a destination of choice?
Sure, thanks for the question. Portland's national reputation for safety and livability concerns continues to suppress future business, particularly with OCC. We're looking at 3 to 4 years out as a real dip versus where we had projected, particularly with the new hotel. I just really want to underscore that the challenges that Portland is facing are challenges similar to every major city in this country. However, a few national news outlets want to paint Portland as a place you want to go to a restaurant, but you don't want to stay. And that's done us a great disservice in our marketing. To overcome this challenge, OCC with Travel Portland and the broader hotel community have put together a couple of strategies and actions. The first is increased sales and outreach. Travel Portland's sales team continues robust trade show and sales mission travel and outreach to potential clients to highlight all that Portland has to offer and to directly address client or decision maker concerns about livability. I was able to watch part of a focus group that informed this work. So we've done the research, and we're also approaching very specific trade sectors that we know are going to be a good match to Portland, have been here in the past, or are part of a broader strategy of getting people to pick Portland as their West Coast stop. A lot of national organizations do East Coast, Midwest, East Coast, Midwest. So I know in particular we've partnered with other cities. Pittsburgh was one of them, where we actually give a discount. Pittsburgh gives the same discount if you pick both of us in the same 3 or 5 year cycle. So we are being really creative with how we approach the decision makers, a lot of whom are based Chicago, DC. We have MERC commissioners who go, our OCC sales staff go, and obviously Travel Portland spends a lot of time with direct face-to-face recruitment. So that's just more aggressive promotions that also include financial incentives like hotel room rebates, complimentary services, rental discounts to convention clients that book out at established dates for defined future periods. We have general and targeted marketing and public relations. Travel Portland is leading strategies to deliver marketing materials to general convention delegates. So not just the decision makers, but actually folks who are trying to decide, is this a year that I skip or is this a year that I go? We want them to come to Portland. It really helps that we don't have sales tax. That still does make a difference with some people. So we also have materials targeted to professional convention planners and convention site selection decision makers, who are typically association board members or C-suite executives. So that's multiple different audiences right there that we're developing very targeted communication for. These strategies will increase awareness of key Portland attributes and attractions and information that addresses directly and head-on those livability concerns. Then finally, starting July 1st, we will have the Convention District Safe Connect program. And that will entail downtown clean and safe, providing public safety coordinators in the areas immediately surrounding OCC and the routes to the Lloyd Center Hotel area. The program will provide public coordinator presence 7 days a week for the next year, and it will be augmented by event-specific increases in staffing to create a safe environment for visitors and reduce the likelihood of negative experiences. Similar programs that have launched this past year include the Downtown Hotel District, Central East Side, and the TriMet investments through their Reimagining Public Safety and Security on Transit. So
Actually, I was
starting
gonna-
July, people on the street.
And I was actually going to ask about the convention. This is off script, but how is it going with the convention center and the new hotel? This program you just described, is it in place now, or is this something going forward in terms of sort of the enhanced presence?
The enhanced presence isn't there. Again, it starts July 1.
July 1,
So we
yeah.
can count the minutes and days. But what I was pointing to was that enhanced presence is modeled off of enhanced presence programs in at least 3 other parts of town that have rolled out this past year.
Any comment on how the convention center and the new hotel is done? Given the challenges, particularly the pandemic, is there anything you can add to that, or?
I mean, the hotel definitely faced some challenges. We were able to celebrate its opening 3 months before people literally quit getting on airplanes. But we had done good enough modeling with our kind of worst case scenario, I believe, being an earthquake and a recession happening at the same time. That's remarkably similar to a pandemic. So bond repayment has gone okay. Nod, yes. So we're in a good spot. I think the people
Ryan
who
says we're good.
the people who own the hotel are obviously hoping more people come. But from the public finance side, we're solid. Again, modeling for an earthquake and a recession, smart move.
And we certainly understand from this side, this is something you did not ask for, a pandemic right before, right after you opened the hotel. Thank you.
Can I just clarify that it's the 3 to 4 years? So are you saying we're still 3 to 4 years out from maybe like a return to pre-pandemic or to the predicted rate of what we expected? What was that?
So that's the year window that we look out. Is Steve here? Who wants to talk about?
And Craig is.
Here. So the window that we look out is not just 1 year.
Right.
We book years ahead. Craig, thank you. Tell us about our window of predictability, or sales window.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Craig Stroud, Executive Director of the Convention Center. Thank you for the question. I really appreciate the interest and the what's at stake for our broader hospitality community. Specific to the Convention Center, we've had a couple of relatively robust years. It's important to note that that's because of the work that was done pre-pandemic. So with the hotel coming online, clients were actively booking, and we booked so far out in the future that we're now just getting through the tail end of that pipeline of business. What did not happen for Portland is during the pandemic, we were not as effective as other cities at booking this year, next year, 26, 27. So there has been a bit of hard, diligent work to try to find clients booking on a short-term basis, which is abnormal, but happening more regularly, or a little bit more regularly, to kind of bridge this dip. When you look to the 3 to 5 year window, we do believe we'll reach 2019 levels in 2019 dollars in the next year or two. Mm-hmm. Challenge is our expenses are not in 2019 dollars. So it will be 3 to 4 years until we probably hit from a dollar that's been inflated standpoint, the region's hospitality level. Specific to the Convention Center Hotel, the Hyatt is performing arguably better than other hotels because it gets so much of our business in addition to the Moda Center business, and it's a brand new hotel that's in that mid-luxury scale. So it is performing well, and the bonding has been able to be repaid through transit lodging taxes that are site-specific. But we continue to have to press forward and, make a better future for hospitality in Portland.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you for the clarification.
Great, thank you.
All right, back to the zoo. As more specific, and we'll say congratulations to the voters, or graciousness to the voters for passing the bond. As part of the bond, we understand that some of those funds are planned to improve facilities to enhance educational opportunities at the zoo. Pre-pandemic, the zoo had many educational opportunities and programs, and it's our sense that many of these have not necessarily returned to pre-pandemic levels. I think about summer camp at the zoo, or at other, like some of the overnights and some of those other experiences, lots of field trips. I have a first grader going to the zoo next week. Can you give us a sense of if our sense is accurate? Are there less educational programs before? What's the kind of the future look like of education at the zoo?
Sure, thank you. So super excited by the future of the zoo. Thank you, voters, yet again. Just to remind you, 1.3 million visitors come to the zoo every year, including hundreds of thousands of kids. The Oregon Zoo has a long history of curating the entire zoo experience as educational, whether you read through every single sign, or whether you're more selective with your interpretive strategy. We have keeper chats. We have meaningful interaction with trained volunteers, and we also have paid zoo naturalists on zoo grounds. All of these in-person experiences are designed with our guests learning. We hope that everybody takes something new away, whether it's about the animal, whether it's about the habitat the animal lives in, geography and world culture, or if it's a sustainable change that they can make in their lives that'll help the animal's environment. So we're looking for a positive experiential learning experience for every single one of our visitors. So what you're pointing out are some of the specific, more raise your hand, sign up for an educational experience. And there are fewer staff and fewer programs than in 2019 in the education division. We took the post-pandemic time to focus on rebuilding our education programs. We actually came back from the pandemic without the education department fully staffed. And we're reducing our volume of programs and participants based on 6 months of needs assessment with community involvement and understanding zoo resources and capacity. New education program is focused on deeper learning with underserved communities and measuring educational outcomes. The bond will give the Oregon Zoo an opportunity to take our interpretive signage and messages to the next level and use best practices, data, informative assessments, and front-end evaluation to determine how to become more effective at communicating our conservation message to every zoo visitor. As a note, if you're on our webpage looking for camp, you're not going to find it probably ever again. I recommend you go over to OMSI,
yeah.
and then you can sign up for Zoo Camp through OMSI. And I think that's a really smart, strategic way that we've decided we can do the same or more with less. We're no longer replicating the infrastructure of camp sign up and camp management, but we're still getting kids on site in the summer.
Besides signage and communication pieces, are there other capital expenditures related to education that we should expect to see from the bond?
Well, the 08 bond built the new education center, so we're not going to replicate that work. I'd be happy to have somebody from the zoo come up and talk about anything more specific, but there's not going to be a new building for education.
Okay, I think that's good. Go ahead, Bob.
Thank you. This next topic actually very near and dear to my heart, solid waste fees. I was privileged to be part of the team that helped kick off the City of Portland's solid waste and recycling program back in the early 90s. And I would like to point out that Councilor Nolan was the director of the Bureau at that time, so she had a big involvement as well. We worked very closely with Metro as well as the
I'm sorry.
No, it was great working with you. I'm very proud of this program. I think we all should be very proud of how well this program worked in partnership with Metro.
This guy hadn't even been heard of.
Yes. She was our fearless leader. In partnership with Metro as well as the franchise haulers, which are private companies. So for Metro has steadily increased their solid waste fees in recent years in line with a model that prioritized predictability. We understand, I think it was just this year or this past year, a waste fee policy task force was convened to consider the switch from the prior model to a full cost recovery model. We have a few questions on this topic. Can you first explain what full cost recovery means? And what I mean by that is in the context of the service levels that are provided for the operation of the solid waste and recycling program at Metro, how you make those determinations, since some of the functions potentially could be discretionary. How much staff do you need? What kinds of programs do you offer? How do you really define that full cost recovery model?
Since you've outed me here, I could talk about this for the next 3 hours. Signal here. To understand our fees for solid waste and recycling, waste prevention and environmental services, that's the department that manages this for us, we have to put them in 2 rough buckets. And they're one of the improvements we made, staff implemented a year ago at the beginning of this fiscal year, is to really separate particularly the reserves and ending fund balance from those 2 functions. And they are operation of our transfer stations and regional services that are designed to help the region reduce its waste to landfill. And in the context of our transfer stations, we operate 2 major transfer stations in the region. There are privately owned transfer stations that serve the same function within the region, and we regulate them. We don't operate them. So cost of service really applies specifically to the operations of those transfer stations. And there had been some concern, probably some reality, that in years past there had been a little bit of sloppage between the operations funds and the regional system fee funds. Our staff led the way to make sure that doesn't happen anymore. On the transfer station operations, we do look at efficiencies, and our leadership team there is really good at making sure that we're using equipment as efficiently as possible, we're using personnel as efficiently as possible, and we're meeting all of our obligations to our regulator, which is DEQ, plus also employee safety and other factors that we consider there. On the regional system fee side, those funds are collected for every ton of wet waste, landfill waste, delivered either to our transfer stations or to any of the privately owned transfer stations that we regulate. And they are used for our recycling programs, our RID patrol, which goes around and cleans up rights of way, all services that are part of our long-term vision of reducing the tonnage of garbage that goes to landfills. We're focusing on reducing, reusing, recycling. And those funds allow us to run those programs.
Great. So one of the task force recommendations, I think they established 3 or 4 priorities, was affordability. So could you comment on how affordability goes into your thinking around how these fees are established?
Since you know that one, you know that there are 3 other priorities that the task force recommended to us. And they include equity. Where have I got that? I should know this because maybe my vice chair knows. Accessible system, healthy environment, which includes but is more comprehensive than just reduction of wet waste. And
Peer treatment.
Peer treatment, yes.
Fair treatment of
Fair
the
treatment
nonprofit
of
and
the nonprofit, and yes, thank you. So the way, the way we're setting, the way we consider affordability is staff takes those 4 directives, affordability being one of them, tries to balance them, has conversations in advance of developing a specific proposal with council and gets some input, then brings us a recommendation based on those priorities, and we almost always make a tweak or two to it before we approve it.
Another part of the task force work, if I read this correctly, is also for Metro to increase its outreach about how these fees are established and just education of what these fees pay for, because they're really buried in people's garbage rates, right? When they're paying their bills, they're seeing, part of the cost of that is what Metro operates and manages. And it sounded like the task force was talking about, well, what does that do? What services, what benefit are you providing?
In order to get to our vision of reducing waste and providing affordable services, we're on a mission to help people understand that the services, their local garbage collector, garbage and recycling collector, the transfer stations, the recycling centers do, is to reduce the wet waste and move to thinking about affordability or thinking about what they pay for those services as they're paying for the results. And it may very well, at least initially, it will increase costs that are paid for reuse, for example, or costs that are paid for recycling of materials, because sometimes over the last 10 years, the worldwide markets for recyclable materials have just fallen apart. And we want people to be thinking, I'm paying for responsible, environmentally appropriate removal of things I am no longer using in my house or my business. Not think about, I'm paying for a 90-gallon can. I'm paying to have things removed and taken care of responsibly. That's going to require quite a shift. And we're adding educational material directly on our website, as well as through our local jurisdiction partners, because remember, Metro sets tipping fees. 24 different cities and 3 counties set the fees that haulers are allowed to charge to bring that material to wherever it's disposed. So we have to work with those 24 cities and 3 counties and the private and nonprofit participants.
Thank you.
You want more on garbage?
No, I just want to say that.
Mark always has a question.
Not at all, but visiting many communities around the country, Portland and this region is really a gold standard in terms of the level of service that's provided and the deflection of garbage not going to landfill and going to other uses. And I think there's a lot to be very, very proud of with this program.
Can I educate myself a little bit, since I have the expert in the room here? Wet waste versus the stuff that I take to the transfer station, which is never wet, how are they different? What's the difference?
Wet waste,
It's like,
where are my experts?
Beforehand.
Wet waste is a catch-all phrase
Yeah.
for stuff that goes to the landfill.
That's putrescent.
Well, it's more than putrescible, because more and more it's becoming plastic by weight. And am I getting that right?
yes, with food. Putrescible is with food and things that have water in them.
Okay, okay.
Dry waste, construction materials, things that don't have food, or things that keep them, add to decomposition.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a
Yeah, sure.
Well, just it made me think, as you were talking about the definition of plastic, like with the added services, like private services, recycling services like Ridwell, have you seen a change in anything that like is going to landfills? Like, is that making a dent in anything? Does that affect?
Don't shake
Alright.
your head.
I mean, I just want to know, because I feel, it's on every
Port.
box in every
2
port,
minutes,
you know.
Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Good question. RMA.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Roslyn. I'm the Strategic Initiatives Manager for Waste Prevention and Environmental Services. Great questions. We actually have a new study coming out from DEQ in the near future called our Waste Composition Study. We haven't had one since a long time, probably 15 years. So we look to that study to show trends. And you mentioned Ridwell. We have a huge monumental legislation coming called the Recycling Modernization Act, which will expand services for everyone throughout the region, both at the curb and also recycling depots, which is something we've been talking about in our system facilities plan. So great questions. Changes are coming. And we do regularly work with DEQ to assess the waste stream. And we're excited for those results to come out soon. So thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about EPR?
Yes, yeah, and so Recycling Modernization Act is what we call an extended producer responsibility law. And we're really fortunate in Oregon to have many of those laws. We have Paint Care is one, Oregon E-Cycles, which we just updated. We have a new mattress EPR law, and essentially these provide regulations for holding companies accountable for the end of life for their products. And so the Recycling Modernization Act is specifically focused on packaging, and plastic packaging has huge negative impacts throughout our world, as we all know, because it's been out of sight, out of mind. And so the focal point of that legislation is responsible end markets that are certified so that we can be more sure that when we put material into our recycling bin, it doesn't negatively impact other countries or other people. This is a groundbreaking new law. There's only, I think we're the third state that has it in the country. So all eyes are on Oregon and what we do with that law because a major overhaul of our recycling system is needed. It's been outdated for a while, so we're really excited about that new law.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Allegra will be sure to ask about that next year.
Getting all our note.
Great.
But great questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Matt, you have the last question.
Thank you. Moving on from that exciting topic.
Robust discussion.
We're gonna go to talk about the urban growth boundary. And as Todd alluded to, things you tell us year before end up coming back in questions the year after. TSCC's been around for 100 years and we've got staggered 4-year terms, so it's a great way to, I think, a benefit of the commission to have a hold of sort of institutional knowledge and annual review and that sort of thing. So last year, you shared with us that the UGB review will have a steering committee as part of the process, a new approach around UGB deliberations. And what is the status of this steering committee? Where are we at in this process? And how has the approach been successful or not so far?
Great, thanks. Well, I'm lucky enough to have the opportunity to answer this question for you. We did make that commitment, and we're following through on that. And our primary goal of these committees that we formed, which is one, our urban growth roundtable, and also a youth advisory table, has been around, one, demystification of the urban growth process at Metro, which includes modeling, it includes a whole bunch of data, it includes a whole bunch of laws and precedents, and really good committed staff that want to have a transparent process. So the UGR, if you're okay with me using acronyms here, has met 9 times. They have 2 remaining meetings. The UGR is formed of a whole bunch of different perspectives on urban growth issues, and has been very fruitful discussions and conversations, very similar to the ones that I think we've been able to have today around curiosity and really poking around assumptions and ways that we can continue to make improvements. The youth cohort is is new for us and is a diverse group of young people from across the region. And they've had 6 meetings, and actually they're going to have a tour this July around the urban growth boundary to really not just learn about urban growth management, but also kind of see the implications of it, the benefits of it, the work that we've done as Metro to oversee the urban growth boundary. You know, overall, we feel that these 2 advisory committees have been tremendously successful in those goals of, one, demystifying the process, kind of opening that process up in ways that we're always, that continuous improvement that I talked about a little bit earlier, but also continuing to engage new audiences, new ideas, make people feel included in the process, defining our shared future as a region as it comes to urban growth. And so to that end, I think that, yes, the committees have been meeting. They're approaching their end here fairly soon as we approach a potential decision. And yeah, we feel they've been successful.
Great. Can you share some of the current pressures on the UGP or challenges you are facing as you move towards this decision?
Yeah, well, how much time we got?
18 minutes.
Okay, great. Well, I mean, at a really high level, the tensions are land for housing and jobs, and also our values of conservation and protecting our forests and our farmlands and our green spaces. And you know, Metro, we take a really serious data-driven approach at understanding, first, how do we bring the most of the land that we currently have, which we called our buildable land inventory, that we determined we have codes for like every lot in the region. It's actually kind of incredible, the level of granularity that our staff is able to take and then filter out based off conditions, easements, what's actually buildable, what's not buildable, and then add other layers around likelihood of buildability, if that's even a word, buildableness. I'm making up new words as we go on here. Thanks for entertaining that. But you know, like I said, our decision is guided by a real strong commitment to making the most of the land that we have. But when we do make a decision to expand the boundary, ensuring that there's very clear regional goals around specifically what is it that we want, whether it's, you know, housing. There's like a whole bunch of different things we can go around: density, around the kinds of housing, and other potential questions, and also jobs, quality of jobs, and things like that. So, you know, between now and in the next few months, our focus is really around continuing to have as transparent a process as possible, making sure that people feel like Metro is doing right by, one, the future of the region, because, you know, we can have a conversation and we'll have different ideas about what the best path is to take, but we're going to take a really rigorous approach, take the feedback that we've received from community, from practitioners and from industry experts, and try and weigh those trade-offs through that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I ask
Yeah.
Please.
This is a Metro-wide question. This is my last meeting, so I get to ask my last Metro question. I've always thought that Metro was an incredibly smart solution to regional problems. And I've always been curious because, you know, I go out and I travel and I see places and they don't have urban growth boundaries, for example. They don't have the kind of robust recycling programs that we have. They don't have, you know, I could go on and on about Metro after 8 years of learning from you all. Are other states, are other countries, are other places coming to you and saying, how do we get a regional government? How do we get our own Metro?
Anybody?
Well, I will say, we are the only regional government that has an elected body. So we are unique. There are other regional governments that are attempting to solve problems at this scale. But this region is unique in that the people of this region have elected representatives here. So I don't know, counselors, if you've had outreach.
So is an elected body, is that a deterrent to making this a more common model, or what do you think about that?
We have a spirit of innovation in Oregon, you know, we just try different things, and I think it's it sets us apart. I would love for everyone to chime in here and make the most of the 13, maybe 10 minutes now, so Mark, we make the most of this last meeting, but you know, there are different, you know, every year, different best practice trips where, you know, leaders from Portland will go to other places to learn from cities like maybe Nashville or Houston or wherever, and learn about what other cities are doing. The same things happen where other cities and business leaders, government leaders come to Portland. And I do hear the sense of, you know, the concept of a metro as this regional coordination of being something that people really value across the country. We also see it when we go to DC and we lobby. We talked about that a little bit. I talked about that a little bit ago, where our JPAC, our Region's Transportation Committee, we are in DC, and we hear how rare it is for 24 cities, 3 counties, all transportation agencies all coming together and advocating for a shared list of priorities. You know, I'm not saying that's only because of Metro, but it helps to have this regional approach, and I think it's part of what's going to help us get through this kind of period of transition that we're in. So there's that level of optimism. But anyway, I would love for others to chime in.
I think it's an excellent note to end our discussion on, unless someone else has a.
I mean, I guess I'll add a little bit. I think that the work that we do, telling our story, kind of ebbs and flows as we're telling our story, either to prove our value here locally, or if we're doing it more on the national and international stage. And I think this council, because of everything we're taking on and because of what the region's asked of us, is really focused on telling our story and solidifying our role here and now. I know previous Metro Council presidents have spent a lot more time speaking on panels nationally and internationally than any of us have. I do go to a national network of local elected officials. I've been to the conference 3 times out of my now 6 years of service. And, you know, just one-on-one conversations, people are intrigued. But I think governance questions are really hard, and it takes more than a study, it takes more than a good idea, particularly adding a level of government. You look to, you know, like folks who come from the Nashville area are extremely proud of telling the story about how their city county, and that's an innovation. So blending 2 into 1 is kind of the opposite answer of giving a regional government, where you're still allowing individual cities to have that local control and not forcing Fairview to look like Forest Grove. But I think we have a lot of work to do here in the region, and I'm happy to go to those national conferences and kind of plant the seeds, but I don't know if right now we have the energy to try and help people do governance projects elsewhere when we're going through some big ones here at home.
I just want to thank everyone for your candor and your thoughtfulness, the breadth and depth in this room and with Metro in general is just awe-inspiring. You heard us asking questions, which I think is probably a standard practice for all of you. What do you do? What's that part? What does that mean? And we're just so thankful to come here every year and engage with you and provide more space to kind of have these conversations and engage with the public. So with that, I will close the hearing and open a regular business meeting of the TSCC. Commissioners, do you have any other comments on the budget?
No.
Okay. Allegra, would you please share the staff recommendations for the certification letter?
Yes, I'd be happy to. And I would first like to comment, as I do, I think, every year that I have been here, on the very useful and informative budget document. We really do appreciate that it's well organized and offers comprehensive discussion and analysis. The finance team is a great group to work with, so diligent and thoughtful and good about reaching out when they have a question before something happens to be like, how do we do this the right way, which we absolutely appreciate. So we as staff found the budget estimates to be reasonable for the purposes stated and in substantial compliance with budget law. Staff suggests no recommendations or objections to the fiscal year 24-25 approved budget.
Great. May I have a motion authorizing the commission to sign the certification letter as recommended by staff? Mark, it's your.
Well, I'll move to do that.
I will second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 The Metro budget is so certified by TSCC. Allegra follows up really soon with your signed letter. And with that, I will close today's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.
Recording stopped.
The urban flood.